Hello and welcome to another episode of the L&G Just Covered podcast. We talk to advisors, key stakeholders in the intermediary space. My name's Wayne.
And my name's Clodagh, and today we've got Joe, Director of Strategic Growth at Alexander Hall. So welcome, Joe.
Welcome,
Thank
Joe.
you for having me both.
Thanks for coming on. Absolutely brilliant that you're coming today. Brilliant to see you face to face. I haven't seen you for a while, obviously been online, all that type of thing, but thank you for travelling down to down in Bristol to film it today. So how's it going? How's the year started? Bear in mind we're actually into Q2 now. Unbelievable, isn't it?
We are, yeah. I don't actually know where 2026 has gone so far. I think I probably speak on behalf of the intermediary market in that it's been absolutely crazy last few weeks with obviously the swap rates, lenders having to reprice at short notice, and obviously our advisors wanting to do the best by their clients. So it's been a frantic Q1. Some things have been great and some things not so good. Yeah. But yeah, it's been a very interesting one. So we'll see what happens moving into Q2.
A strong Q1 then. You were happy with performance-wise,
yeah,
regardless of all the challenges?
Really happy. I think it's fair to say it's probably not just our advisors. I think it's probably advisors right across the industry have gone above and beyond for customers. Keying applications out of hours. We've had advisors online at 11, 12 o'clock at night, which really isn't actually that sustainable for their personal well-being. But it's been really humbling to see people really wanting to do the best by their customer, which is really, really important.
Challenge, isn't it? That, whenever the lenders change the rates, and we were chatting earlier that there's been like 2 or 3 from the one lender within the space of 48 hours, but it's the impact that has on an advisor, where they're constantly then ringing the customers, agreeing the new rate change, then maybe having to resubmit to do it again, and compliance.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and I think the way the team have all really pulled together, and that's not just the advisors, it's our case managers who then look after the administration on behalf of the advisor. Keeping customers informed, but also as much as we don't like lenders not giving us much notice, it also has been quite difficult for our lending partners as well. The way rates have been moving with just unprecedented times, but we've been here before. I'd like to think we won't be here again, but unfortunately we probably will. But it's just really important that I guess the whole intermediary and the community stick together.
Yeah, agreed.
And obviously you're seeing really good performance from Q1, probably as a result of a lot of the foundation building that you've been putting in with regards to Alexander Hotel in the last year and stuff. And I understand it is actually your second time at Alexander Hall. So how did things start with you? How did you get into the industry? How have you ended up where you ended up?
Yeah, I've done a real full circle, Wayne. So I originally started, if I rewind right back, I won't say the year because then I'll give away my age. I'd like to leave a little bit of mystery with that. But I didn't do very well in my A-levels. I should have done a lot better, but unfortunately I enjoyed going out too much. So I didn't go to university, and I ended up joining House of Fraser as a management trainee. So I originally went into retail management, and I really enjoyed it, managed to work my way up and move around a little bit. So you can probably tell by my accent, north. I ended up moving from the Metro Centre in Gateshead actually down to Bath, so not too far from here, and then on to London. And then by chance, I got chatting to somebody who was a financial advisor, and I thought, that sounded quite interesting. And I ended up doing my financial exams through Barclays. And then about 1.5 years in, they decided they wanted us to start giving advice on mortgages. So did the CMAP qualifications, and I absolutely loved mortgages. It was, for me, I think it's a real privilege being able to help somebody buy a house. And buy their home, somewhere that they're going to have their family, bring children up, etc. So it's a real privilege being part of that journey, and I absolutely loved it. And then when the opportunity come to sort of specialise in mortgages, I actually joined Alexander Hall as an advisor. And again, because I'd had previous management experience, I ended up becoming a sales manager and then an area sales manager. And eventually, just before I left, I was the T&C director, but I was heavily involved in like some of the operations, etc. But I was also very passionate about protection. So I quickly became the SME in protection. And at the time, it's very similar, I would imagine, to lots of companies. There's always another mortgage appointment. because if you want the house or the flat, you have to have the mortgage. And a lot of advisors struggle with the protection conversation, whereas I always, as an advisor, I found it quite interesting. I genuinely believed in it. But we had advisors who just couldn't quite do it to the levels we wanted. So when I was originally at Alexander Hall, we took the decision to split it out. So you either specialised in mortgages or protection. And we were lucky to find somebody who was really passionate about protection to help start building the team. And obviously at the time as well, we were also passing our business to Direct Life and Pensions. So you guys as insurers couldn't see how much business we were doing.
Which was very frustrating for us.
I'd imagine, yeah. I then, it was back in 2017, my children were getting a little bit older and I always wanted to come back home and be closer to my family, etc. So I was really fortunate in that I was able to join London Country Mortgages and worked up in the Newcastle office for 5.5 years. And that was fantastic because it's a brilliant business. You know, one of the largest days in the UK and huge volume as well. Yeah. So you learn a lot with that. And then I was then fortunate to move to what was Strike Financial Services, which later became Purple Bricks Mortgages. And they were an AR of Mortgage Advice Bureau. So it was brilliant because I'd only ever worked as a DA before. So to then get AR experience and work alongside one of the biggest and the best networks in the UK was unbelievable. Yeah. So again, I learned a huge amount. But then when the opportunity come back to Alexander Hall, it was too good an opportunity to miss, really. So I feel like I've done a full circle, right round from, starting as an advisor with Alexander Hall to then coming back and obviously helping Rich, our MD, and obviously the rest of the exec team look to grow the business. But my passion for protection has been one of the big projects that I've worked on since coming back. And as you know, with some support from you guys, we've looked at completely redesigning our front end customer journey.
Okay.
And that's been brilliant. We've got an incredible head of protection, a guy called Sam. And between Sam and I, we've worked really quite hard to make sure that we've got a consistent journey where it doesn't matter if mortgage advisors need a bit of help with having the protection conversation, we're giving them that support through training, upskilling, through communications, going through our CRM. So every customer's getting a consistent journey. Brilliant. And I think that's incredibly important. And then the mortgage advisors either booking the customer into the protection advisor's diary, or we've hired some protection services consultants who are mopping up. So every customer, regardless of whether you're looking to do a product transfer, remortgage, buy-to-let, are getting a consistent conversation about protection, which I think is incredibly important.
And that's brilliant. So it's not as if it's just the first customer, the first-time buyers or remortgage. Those product transfers are vitally important, and I think sometimes they're missed, aren't they? That people just ignore it. Protection need.
Yeah, I think sometimes people think, well, I had the conversation 2, 3, 5 years ago and they weren't interested. Yeah. And people unfortunately do assume that because they said no previously that they're going to say no again. And sometimes it's a little bit of a fear factor. But ultimately, if everybody thinks back to their own personal situation, what things have changed in the last 5 years or 2 years or whatever for everybody personally, and then just have the conversation, because at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? The customer says, no, thank you. And that's their choice. Yeah. But at least you've done the right thing. And I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah. It's that importance piece, isn't it? And the advisors we've talked about this a lot, about having the belief around their importance to the customer, because if they don't raise it, no one else is going to raise it, are they?
Yeah.
It's making sure they understand that.
When we, so at the start of the year, we had a bit of a relaunch to go through what our new customer journey was going to be. And we had one of your colleagues, Barry, come along and tell his own personal story. And that was incredibly powerful because it brings the why it's important. Because I think as managers, leaders, people who run businesses, you can talk about protection a lot. And people think, oh, it's just because they want to increase income or whatever. But actually, when you hear stories like Barry's and, people share either personal stories or, stories of obviously customers they've had, not sharing too much personal information, but where it's actually had a positive impact on their life. I think that really helps bring it together. And one thing Barry said to me, and it's weird, it really stuck with me. He said it to the whole team, which was brilliant, is either you're an advisor who's transactional or you're an advisor who cares. And if you deeply care about your customer, you'll want to make sure they have a good protection conversation. And I hadn't heard that for a while and it really stuck. we've been using that a lot in our conversations with the mortgage guys to make sure they're passing stuff over.
That's brilliant. I think what I loved about when you came in and joined Alexander Hall, because obviously we work with a lot of firms and there's support we can give, and we've collaborated together. And I remember our very first conversation where we were talking about, okay, we can do some training, we can do that. And I remember you saying, what we wanted to do is make sure we've got the foundations right first. So you were approaching it quite method. Is that the word? You had a method to your man. Let's put it like that. You knew what you were doing. You wanted to approach it in, things in order and do things right firstly, didn't you? So could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So when I first came back, there's some brilliant advisors. There's some brilliant team leaders and brilliant people at Alexander Hall, and that's one of the things that makes it such a special business. The people. But when you are in sort of the weeds, it's very difficult to sometimes see past that. Whereas coming in with a fresh pair of eyes, having worked for some other businesses, some of the biggest and the best in the UK, I was able to, bring the best bits from other companies. But I did a lot of observations, just, sitting down with the key people, asking questions, really open questions. And it's something I've done a lot in my career because it's been a long time since I've advised personally. So I think it's really important to get the feedback and the views of the people actually doing the job, and also listening to lots of calls. What are customers saying to us? Why are they saying no? Is it because we haven't explained it properly? Is it because we've overcomplicated it? Could we have done things, better? And also, when you do take a step back and then come at it with a fresh angle, you spot little things that could be. Whereas if you're in the, as I say, if you're in the weeds day to day, then you sometimes miss. So I think I've always had a passion for protection, but I think having looked at it from different angles, but also it's really important to engage with people doing the job. Because they're the ones, facing off to customers, hearing the objections, hearing the reasons why they might not want to discuss it, etc. So when you factor all of that in, you can build quite a compelling process. And you're absolutely right, Wayne. I think it's looking at it from literally the minute the customer, even before the customer walks through the door or picks up the phone and speaks to you, all the way through, mapping it out. What does it currently look like? Where do we want to get to, and how are we going to get there? But it's really important getting feedback from the team along that journey.
It's like changing the journey, isn't it? And then finding out who's the most successful advisor and where do they put this protection in that conversation, and how it works, isn't it? And then adapting, and for everyone else learning. That's what we're saying. This peer-to-peer learning is so important.
L&G Apply is our new annuity application platform, designed to save you time on every application. Sign digitally and avoid rekeying client details. Tap the link in the episode description and our team will reach out to help you get started.
And I think also once you're in it, so we relaunched our new process in January and it's gone phenomenally well. We're really, really pleased. But there's always more we can do. There always is. But a month after it launched, we took some time out, myself and our head of protection, Sam, and the rest of the exec team, and we just reviewed what was the data saying, what were our customers saying, how do advisors feel about it, how do the mortgage advisors feel about it, and we got quite some good feedback from it, what was working really well, and let's keep doing that, and what maybe could have been better, and then let's have a look at how we can change that. So as much as we've sort of redesigned some of the front end now, I think for me it'll be a continuous program of improvement, because you can always do better and deliver better outcomes. I don't think just because we've done it and it's been really successful that we're going to stop. It's about continually being better. So working with people like L&G and, having you guys come in and say, actually, what about this? Or, for example, I mentioned we'd hired some protection services consultants and we'd sort of prepared some sort of a little bit of a script of what to say to customers to start engaging in the conversation. And we shared it with L&G and we got some brilliant feedback. And it was just a couple of tweaks on words and stuff. But that feedback actually led to better conversations. So I think it's also about engaging with some of the other professionals. Yeah. And obviously, L&G plus, the other insurers have got a lot of SME within that.
Definitely.
And it's not just about your own product knowledge. No. Barry telling his story was really powerful on the why. As I say, he said that line, it really resonated with me. But sharing some of the wording and the scripts and then saying, well, what about this angle? What about that? Has been really positive.
So on the back of that as well, we talked about it recently, just covered it very briefly then. Think about advisor belief, particularly around PTs and perception of customers. They may have said no before. What sort of things have you done around that? On top, I know we have the Barry coming in, and that helps with that. Is there anything else specific that you've done with regards to that?
We've made it pretty easy for the advisor. The advisor will have, there's touch points in the fact find where you might mention things and change your circumstances, particularly if you're possibly looking at a remortgage or a product transfer, etc., and you're chatting about what's happened in life and catching up, etc. And people may have had children. That would be a very easy way into the conversation. But if the advisor's still a little bit uncomfortable or a bit reserved, we've also got some communications that go out at various points in our journey. So once the mortgage application's been submitted, the customer will get a very nice email signposting protection to them as well. Okay. And it'll point the customer in the direction of our website where we've got a quoting tool so they can get some, they can play around with it and do some indicative quotes themselves.
All right, that's
yeah. And then also if they wanted to book an appointment at that time, they can do. But we just position the reasons why they might want to start thinking about it. And then when the mortgage goes to offer, the communications get a little bit more, it really is now time to start doing something. And that's when it'll go out, the customer can click on the links and book a conversation with us. Or if they don't engage with that, the mortgage advisor within 5 working days will reach out and try and have the conversation, get them booked in. And if the customer's still not sure, then it'll fall to our protection services consultant to do a bit of a sweep up. So we're positioning it through hopefully educating during the fact-finding process, at point of application, at point of mortgage offer. And then if kind of all else has failed, we've got the sweep up at the end. And that's proved quite successful. But as I say, it's been quite consistent.
Yeah, of course.
So every customer's getting a consistent sort of journey with us.
Which is obviously what you wanted. In terms of customers on that initial communications, emails and stuff, are you getting, how many of them are you getting coming on and booking the appointments themselves? How's that bit?
I've actually been quite pleasantly surprised at how many have booked indirectly themselves. Okay. We do at point of mortgage offer the customer, because it is customer led now, whereas previously it was a little bit more mortgage advisor led. So we do give the customer the opportunity to opt out if they want to, and that's everybody's right to do so. But we're actually not getting many people opt out. Which again is brilliant. So been quite surprised at how many were getting booked in initially, themselves. But I think there's been a lot in recent sort of years, and there's lots, if you go on like social media, TikTok, etc., there's lots of educational bits about mortgages and first-time buyers and what they need to do to get mortgage ready type of thing. But I think as an industry, we need to do a little bit more to educate customers on protection and why it's important. Because sometimes you talk to customers, particularly first-time buyers, and you're talking about protection and they're not sure what you're talking about. So you have to, keep it really simple,
course,
nice, easy language to understand.
Yeah, and that's what we were chatting with advisors before, and they said if you mention income protection or you need protection, they're having a clue what you're talking about.
I mean, sometimes they think it's like you talk about buildings and contents insurance.
Yeah.
You have to really break it down.
But isn't it funny how they think, well, we have to have that and that's mandatory to have the buildings insurance, but they don't even think that, I have to protect my income to make sure I pay for the buildings and contents and the mortgage to keep the house, But I think we chatted about this earlier. It's all about educating the younger generation, because they need to know this is what's expected. And we've spoke about it before, it should be in the schools earlier. We should be talking about it at home. And as you say, a lot more publicity about it.
Totally agree. I was really pleased to see the government announce they were going to start bringing a little bit more of this into schools and educating people younger. I mean, I'm quite fortunate. My 2 daughters probably know quite a lot about mortgages because they've heard me on Teams calls, etc. a long time. I mean, I offered when they were both at secondary school to go in and do a talk, but that was far too embarrassing.
Mum
going and give a talk. But
I'm not offering it. My daughter wouldn't have that. No way.
But you start talking to them about income protection and critical illness cover, and they kind of glaze over a little bit because they're not sure what it is or what it means.
But then when they go to have their own homes, then they'll be fully prepped. They'll know then. It's important.
So I think it is really important that schools do bring that that sort of thing as part of, an overall package about financial education for the next
Better
generation.
than teaching them how to do an apple crumble, really, we should be telling them what a mortgage is.
I know my daughter does make a really good apple crumble.
She does.
She learned that in school.
So she might have a really good protection conversation as well.
Next time she's making, I'll talk to her about critical illness.
It's just, you're right though, in terms of that, we talk about this a lot, advisors just don't know how important they are to have that conversation, because no one else is going to have that conversation. If you can't really rely on the education at school, can we? Obviously it's great the government's announced this, but the importance of the advisor, that belief piece in the, like, this education and let customers make that informed choice through knowing the pitfalls of life, because it is just life, isn't it? And
I think sometimes advisors struggle because they, if you're a young advisor and maybe you're still living at home and you haven't got financial dependence or what have you, but you've got customers sat in front of you who do have financial dependence, etc., and you're producing a quote and it comes out and you're thinking, oh blimey, I wouldn't be paying £150, etc., for that amount of cover. But I think some advisors struggle to detach themselves a little bit from, well, it's not me paying it, it's the customer and what it means. So when I was originally at Alexander Hall, I used to do a lot of the induction training, because we're quite unique. We take advisors on who've got no experience. We'll train people through our training programs. We'll take brand new to the industry. And if you're brand new, you might never have thought about it or had conversations because it's not in schools, etc. And it's very much sort of theory when you're doing your CMAPs. When you're sat in front of somebody, and I think sometimes it's particularly maybe new to the industry, advisors struggle, as I say, to detach themselves from what they would be willing to pay versus what is important for the customer. So when I was doing the training, it was always like, look, kind of detach yourself from that and think about the customer's situation. So they've got children, for example, what would happen in that event? And it's just about sometimes asking those questions, but also giving the customer time to speak. I think sometimes, because the conversations could be uncomfortable sometimes, we've all got a tendency to try and fill the gap, whereas sometimes asking a question and just staying silent and giving the customer time to think and picture it and imagine what would happen makes for a much better conversation.
Have you tried the new and improved Ignite? 4 tools, 1 platform, 0 stress. Ignite combines the power of 4 tools: criteria, affordability, product and property, in one easy-to-use platform, giving you everything you need to research and compare for the best mortgage options. Ignite's data is updated directly by lenders in real time, so you can stay ahead with confidence in a fast-moving market. To see the power of 4 in action, click the link below to book a demo.
Finding peace, isn't it? And just having that conversation and asking those questions, signposting it in a nice way, because you're inquisitive when you're an advisor, aren't you? So
yes.
I'm intrigued about it. Tell me why you did that. Tell me why you took this out. Tell me how you would feel about this. Customers will be expecting you to ask that, wouldn't they? Because, you're a professional.
Yeah, but maybe the younger ones, as you were saying, Joe, it's harder because they don't really experience, or maybe their families, parents don't have protection themselves and don't think about it, but it's this learning. We have to educate our advisors as well.
Yeah. And it's not just at the start, it's throughout
constantly.
It's so important, because I think point you just made, Wayne, a lot of the protection conversation, the sort of importance of it, you can draw out from that fact find meeting. So why the customer's looking to buy, what's made them choose that area. And it could be they want to get into an area for a better school, in the school catchment, etc. So, obviously children, family are important. And it's all about building up that picture of what's important to that customer. And then 9 times out of 10, then replaying the customer's words back to them. It makes complete sense why you would need to protect your income, or why you need to protect against the critical illness.
Because they've given that information, haven't they, as well? And the good advisors, the people that are doing that properly would be doing that, because if you're going to rely on the information in the fact find, quite a lot of the time, some of the protection product type questions are at the end, aren't they?
Yes.
It's far too long, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like when you go buy a pair of shoes, isn't it? And then you get to the counter and they try and sell you the shoe polish. Whereas if, I'm one of the easiest people to be sold to, if you're having the conversation along the way, I would quite happily engage in it. So you're absolutely right. It can't be done at the end of the fact find. It needs to be a conversation throughout.
And the advisors need to listen. We were chatting about this earlier, that my friend's daughter is into dancing and the cost to send her to the worlds and all this. But if you didn't have your income, you'd be saying, well, that's all stopping. So how would your child feel if you said in the morning, I have no money to do this, we can't travel to Donegal for, because it's going to cost me 50 quid to put the petrol in or to go to these competitions. So it's getting them to actually relay that back, that it is important, and that's something that they would never sacrifice.
Yeah, because human
if they've
nature, you
no
don't want to
income.
think about things like that, do you? You just don't. You do your life, don't you? I think society nowadays, you don't think about losing your lifestyle. And we talk about this a lot. Advisors are lifestyle advisors, aren't they? Helping you keep it, and trying to have that conversation around. Okay, let's put some sort of plan in place so you don't worry about it. You're not going to lose it if
And then
life
as
does
an
happen.
advisor, you feel that really the satisfaction when you know something does happen. So is, like, Joe, have you any of those hero moments where you think, oh, do you know what? In my career so far, I'm so glad that I done this or made this decision.
I mean,
because
there's quite a few, and I think there's such a, particularly when you're training, I think there's such a power in storytelling.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why I was so passionate about protection, if I roll back to my Barclays days, I'd literally just finished the exam. So I was all, like really eager to get going and start and talking to customers. And I was only in my early 20s at the time. And a friend of mine, unfortunately, was diagnosed with breast cancer. She was the same age as me. And it was so she was training to be a nurse, and she got the opportunity to go out to America as part of her course. And they were doing a section on breast cancer, and they got them all to check themselves, and she found something. So they said, I'm sure it won't be anything, because literally like early 20s. When you go back home, go back to your doctor and get it checked. So she did, and unfortunately it did turn out to be breast cancer. And she was an only child, and it was, at the time, it was... She was really young and obviously an only child, and then you saw the impact it had on our parents in terms of them taking time off work to look after her, etc. And obviously she had to pause her degree. And unfortunately, a few years later, it come back and it spread, and unfortunately she passed away. And that, obviously, it was incredibly difficult, particularly for her parents, but also I saw the impact of what a critical illness can do to a family. So fortunately, I'd literally just finished my qualifications with Barclays. So when I was talking to people, I was talking with a genuine belief.
Yeah.
And then as you get into the industry and you've been around as long as I have, you hear more and more of that. In a previous company, a customer got referred up to me, and I had to have the conversation, and basically it was a husband and wife. The husband had passed away. He was the income in the family. We tried to have conversations about protection, but they weren't interested. And obviously the file was very well documented, etc. The quotes were on file, or recommendations letter had gone out and they hadn't taken it. And she was ringing to see if they had something, because unfortunately he'd passed away. And she couldn't afford the mortgage payments, and she had 2 young children. So you see sort of all ends of the spectrum. We've then had a case, and I remember it was when I was training at Alexander Hall, actually, and my sort of supervisor at the time really believed in protection as well, which I'm glad she did. And she had a customer, and she kept having the conversation with him, and eventually he did sign up to take critical illness cover. He was single, no dependents, so didn't want the life, but he took the critical illness cover. Within 6 months, he'd made a claim and had the mortgage paid out. And it did take a while for the insurer to pay out, because the policy hadn't been in force for so short, and they had to do a lot of things and make sure. But I guess the reason I'm sharing all of this is you just don't know what life's going to throw at you. And I think it's so important to use sort of personal true stories when explaining this and having really meaningful conversations with customers. And I think if you position it from the outset, so obviously our advisors are either mortgage experts or they're a protection expert, but we position it up front. I'm the expert in, the mortgages. I'm going to help you find the most cost-effective solution to get the property. But my colleague, for example, Sam, is going to help you stay in that property no matter what life throws at you. And then obviously gathering the soft facts as you're going through the fact find. And then it's really important that they do a really good protection sort of handover and pass over those soft facts, because
So there's
it's
that's a
They have to be
connecting.
close,
Yes.
don't
Yeah.
they?
Yes.
Those
Yeah.
two individuals
Yeah.
involved
Yeah.
with that customer, to make sure that they're on the same page.
And then at least the customer knows these guys are experts because he's the expert in the
Yeah,
mortgage
yeah.
and he
Yes.
has faith now.
Yeah.
He's passed me to the
Consistency,
protection
as you said.
advisor. Yeah.
So I think, there's some brilliant mortgage and protection advisors in our industry. In previous companies we've had it where they've done both. We find having it separate works for us.
Yeah.
And it's a really good referral process. As I said, it's very much, client driven, consistent, etc. And if it works for you doing both the mortgage and the protection, brilliant. But I just genuinely believe you've got to have a real passion for it.
Yeah.
And just have the conversation. And sometimes if that's uncomfortable and you can't do it yourself, then pass it to
Pass it
somebody
to
who's
someone,
happy to
yeah.
have that conversation.
And if there are mortgage advisors out there that don't do the protection, then you refer it on. You cannot leave that customer unprotected.
No, because the worst call to take is the call where, as I said,
Yeah.
that family where
nothing.
unfortunately she can't afford the mortgage and they haven't got anything in place.
Heartbreaking.
It's a horrendous call to
Yeah.
take.
It's like the old widows, or not widows, it was Aviva story, the widow's story. Remember the old Aviva video? And that to me resonates from, that was 25-year-old, that video. And it's just about that story and not having enough money. And the mum got out to work who stayed at home, and then the kids were going to different schools. It's just
We
heartbreaking.
hear it
but
on claims calls. We do. We hear it, and the impact on the families. There's one particular one that sticks in my mind, and yeah, it is what happens. The last thing they want to be worrying about is where money's coming from, because costs go up, don't they? As soon as you've got, say, cancer or something like that, and you've got to have treatment and things, the costs just
the
spiral.
conversation has to be had so that they make that informed decision themselves if they want it or not. But it has to be had, because you don't want to be that advisor that gets the call and you say, I didn't have that conversation at all.
Yeah.
You wouldn't sleep at night.
No, I couldn't think of a worse
Yeah.
conversation to have if, you pick up the file and you think, oh
Oh,
my God,
God.
I did not do
I
my
know.
job properly. I
Yeah.
couldn't think of a worse conversation. to
And
have.
on the other end of that, then when you lift the file and go, oh my goodness, thank God, they've got kick, they've got IP, they've got life cover.
Yeah, and I like where you've done that. Some people will do mortgage and protection, like you say, very successful at it. But what you've done is you've got specialists in their own right.
Yeah.
They develop a really close relationship. They work together to do the best for their client. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's so important. So either write it yourself, or if you can't, refer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally get that. So in terms of the advice piece, just quickly around that, I'm just interested, actually, just thinking about where do you see the advice piece going, and also from an AI perspective, is there anything that you guys are doing from that, or not, as the case may be? It might be a bit early in your journey.
I think it's a bit early in the journey. I
Okay.
think there's a lot of talk about AI,
Right.
and some of it's quite scary, some of it's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I always think of AI as little robots
I
sat
know.
somewhere
That's brilliant.
typing on
That's
a
our age,
keyboard.
Joe.
Yeah, it's definitely my age. I think anything that helps, if AI can add value to customers, as in break things down and make it really simple for them, easy to understand, because there's a lot of technical terms, let's be honest, in income protection or critical illness cover. Hand on heart, how many of us could say we know each insurer's definition inside out? All of the insurers offer added value benefits, etc. And obviously over time you learn that. But if there's anything that could help sort of speed up so the customer gets really good advice and it makes it really easy to understand, and it helps maybe in the claims journey, simplify claims or make them quicker,
Speed up,
faster, brilliant. I'm all for that. So we are looking at a variety of things. I think obviously the study through Amy about the protection gap was really interesting. And clearly as an industry, we've got a lot to do still. But for me, I think I mentioned earlier, there's been a lot of education about mortgages and, TikTok, etc. People educating what you need to do to get on the property ladder, what documents you need, how to get them, etc. But I think as an industry, all of us, intermediaries, insurers, everybody needs to do more on the education piece for customers.
Yeah.
Because when you're asking a customer to, talk about protection and stuff, and they're looking at you and it's like, what, do you mean buildings insurance? We've clearly got more work to do.
And then hopefully AI can help in that in terms of making it easier for an advisor to do that.
Yes,
But but obviously complementing what they do.
Yes, I can see it definitely complementing. Anything that takes a little bit away of the admin away, because obviously there's a lot to do to write up a file and make sure it's compliant and you've done the right thing and you've ticked all the right boxes. Anything that speeds up that process so you can spend more time with customers is a big thumbs up for me.
Absolutely brilliant. Well, we've got to probably my favourite part of each episode, actually, is where we ask you a question, Joe, if you like. So what we've got for you here is, what's one conversation you used to avoid that now brings you the greatest sense of achievement?
Good question. Thank you for that one, Wayne.
You're welcome.
I think when I first started on particularly sort of my management leadership journey, I was always, I wouldn't say I was scared, but always hesitant or nervous to say no, or that I didn't know the answer. And I think some of it probably comes with age, obviously experience, learning, etc. I'm at a point now where I wouldn't avoid having those conversations I felt uncomfortable in, but I'm very comfortable to say, actually, I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
And I'm really lucky to be able to surround myself with good people who might know the answer. And I'm not afraid to go and either say, I don't know this, can you help me? Or use it as a really good opportunity to collaborate with
I just
people.
say, I don't know, ask Clodagh.
So I actually think it's probably made me more empathetic and definitely more transparent as a leader. And I think that can only be a good thing, because if, as a leader, you can encourage really transparent conversations, you'll definitely get a better sense of trust in your team, but also get more out of people. So I think it's a very long, waffly way of me answering the question, but I think I used to avoid saying I don't know, and I'd be really uncomfortable with it. But now I've got no problem in doing that. And I guess the sense of achievement I've got from that is being able to build more trusting teams, having that real transparency.
It's okay not to know everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's okay not to know, and it's okay to raise your hand and say, I don't know. And you can use it as an opportunity to collaborate or coach or mentor. And that brings me a really good sense of, I guess, achievement.
I love it.
Nice.
You're showing your human side, aren't you? At the end of the day.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
absolutely fantastic.
But I think sometimes when you're sort of first starting out in your career, particularly if we wind back as long as I've been in the industry as a woman, we were in the minority.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you always felt like you had to know everyone and maybe perform a little bit better than your male
You had to be
colleagues
at the top of your game, didn't you?
Yeah. Whereas now maybe it's age, maybe it's who knows. But I know I'm here because I'm good at what I do.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't mind saying I don't know. Can you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And also, part of my favourite part of the episode is, I think you might have a question for our next guest.
I do, yes, yeah. So for your next guest, I would love to know what's a cultural change that they've made that had a bigger impact than they expected.
Oh, no, that one would definitely give you time to think.
I'm
wouldn't you?
looking forward to that one.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Joe. This has been amazing, as always.
No problem. Thank you for
every
having me.
interaction I have with you is brilliant.
Could
This,
talk
more
all
so
day.
than ever. Really, we could talk all day. But yeah, that was absolutely great. I'm sure listeners will love it. Thanks so much for coming down. We appreciate
Brilliant.
it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Sue. Bye.